Hi, my name is Glossenborn, and here are 10 tips and tricks for building in Raft. So, first off, when you're building your raft, it's important to know that Bruce will be biting off the foundation edges. Or he'll be going for pieces like this and this. I'm in creative, so he won't be biting anything. If you place your structures there, then he's going to be biting them and you will lose them. Here's an example. Because of that, we want to try to place a bunch of foundations around all of our important structures, like purifiers, grills, and storage. This will be an important concept that we will expand on later. Another one is with collection nets. So they'll be picking up debris as you're floating along, but one thing that you're struggling with early game is getting enough food. A fishing pole is a good way of getting a lot of fish, which is also needed for shark bait. But while you're fishing, you can't really do much. You can't interact with storages. You can place planks, but you can't do a lot of the other functions that you need to do. However, you can interact with anything floating along the debris. So pretend that's just like debris. If you're fishing, and if you build a long, wide raft, you can run along and pick up all the debris while you're waiting for the fish to come. It's a very good use of your time. Next up, foundations. Whoops, I did not set this one last time. So, if I were to destroy this foundation piece, what would happen to these two? Well, they stay. And if I destroy this one? Alright. So one foundation on its own cannot stay. It'll be destroyed. Unless you have a pillar. This pillar, for whatever reason, makes the foundation think it's connected to something else and allows it to stay up on its own. You can even do this by having a collection net with a pillar. Normally, this couldn't be on its own. In fact, you can't place collection nets on collection nets. They have to be connected to foundations. But once they're placed, you can use half pillars to keep them going. Next up is looking at the engine. Now, I've got low textures on, so you can't really see this well, but that says that there's one engine per every 100 foundations. Now, with an example raft like this, I have far too many foundations, but by using this trick, we can cut down on the number of foundations that we need to have for the engine. This will be very helpful later. The anchor and the sail. So, the sail, if you just place it flat, then it's kind of annoying to deal with. It's like you can't see while you're moving the sail. You can crouch down, but that's just tedious. If you raise it up one, you can see past it while still being able to change it from here. The trick is that the anchor allows a half wall and a floor here, and you can place the sail just behind the anchor and allows you to have both. Also right here, this foundation is being supported by half pillar. It's a good example. For another example, this is kind of what becomes most of the bottom of my raft. By having this one foundation, and I've armored it. This prevents Bruce from biting it at all. It doesn't increase its health, so you can be comfortable knowing that this will never be bitten. Here's the one half pillar here. You could have full pillars going up to the full ceilings, but they're 2 planks and 2 nails each, and they only support the 4 floors that are around them, so you need one there, 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 and there. 8 planks, 8 nails. But if you use walls, and more particularly wooden windows, or thatch windows, if you have a lot of palm leaves, I'd save them for collection nets, then you can use 6 planks to achieve the same that 8 planks and 8 nails would cost. Much cheaper. Now, you've probably seen a lot of videos about how to use the antenna and the receiver. The receiver does need to be on another floor. Looks like I left the battery on. Also, don't do that in order for it to work. It also needs 3 antennas that are separate apart. I'm not going to bother with them. They're pretty easy to do. But because you need to be on the 2nd floor for it, I like to have as many of my structures up there and have them close to this. So like I'll build a 2nd floor right above the engine. That way I can change the direction and activate it from the 2nd floor. And then the same goes for the anchor. If you've got a floor right here, you can actually drop the anchor and change the direction of the sail from the second floor. This will make more sense later on. Another neat trick, hammocks can be held from upper floors, so they don't need a foundation below them. You can just hang them up. And also, these storage boxes can fit on, well, nothing really, but it's good storage, especially for like personal use. Let's talk more about storage. So, of course, when you're first starting, you should be using small storage. Plastic is very cheap, and only 1 scrap and 2 rope for storage is pretty good. As you get more resources, you'll want to upgrade to regular storage boxes. A few more planks, scrap, rope, and a hinge, but it's twice as much storage. Actually, I think it's... yeah, I believe a plastic storage is only like 8. Yeah, so pretty good. So this is a good upgrade that you want to be using. Do you use the large storage boxes? It's technically twice as much as a regular storage, but it requires an extra hinge, a lot more planks and plastic, and titanium. Titanium is really hard to come by, and I would highly recommend not using that. So we're just going to get rid of those two. Now the thing is, these storage boxes can be held up on walls. So you can place them in this sort of a diagram. Now, I was having issue before, and I wasn't able to place them in a, like, having a wall, and then 4 storage and storages. I figured it out. So, there's 2 different sides of a wall. There's this smooth side and this side with the supports. You can't place them with the supports there. If you try, they don't fit. So it has to be on the 2 sides that are smooth, which means you can't do this sort of design. This is what I have on my raft currently. I only just discovered this as I was making this video. We'll come back to this. Just like that right there. Next up, we're going to take a look at crop plots, and specifically the bird's nest. So the seagull can be super annoying for players that are first starting out, mainly because they don't really know how to deal with him. If you have small crop plots or medium crop plots, and you're growing beets and potatoes or flowers, watermelons, pineapples, or strawberries here, then they're going to fly down and they're going to pick at that. You can have a scarecrow, which will distract them for a bit, but the best bet is just to not farm either of these at all. They require water, a lot of your time, and they make the seagulls annoying to deal with. Instead, if you remove all of those and just have a bird's nest, the bird's nest the seagulls like to land on the bird's nest and just chill. They'll leave some feathers, but they're also an easy target for you to stab with a spear or shoot with a bow. That way you can get some raw drumsticks. There's only ever 2 seagulls, so you only need 2 bird's nests. But I'd keep them somewhere, like maybe on top of a structure there, so that you don't ever have to see them. Large crop plots. They're used to grow trees. They're sort of expensive. They'll give you back the planks and the rope in the planks and leaves that you get from chopping them down. You also get the coconuts, mangoes, or the bananas. But the nails and the hinges make it kind of a hard sell. They also take up quite a bit of space. I have a bunch on my raft, but I don't tend to harvest them because you also have to break an axe to get them. I'd only ever recommend using a stone axe if you're going to do that. Let's get a little more complicated with crop plots, and more specifically, beehives. Beehives require flowers to be nearby. They've got a little flower painting on the side of them. Small crop plots can be placed on walls, just like storage boxes can. So I've got, let's see, 10 small crop plots in here for 30 flowers. That allows me to get the maximum amount of honeycombs from all of these beehives. I have these scarecrows in here because sometimes the seagulls do get inside, but by having this sealed off enclosure, seagulls aren't normally able to fly in. The next update will hopefully adjust seagulls a little bit. I know the developers were talking about that. But yeah, you can't have it any taller than this or else they will be able to fly in easily. But by having it like this, they 90% of the time avoid it. I also tend to have a bird's nest up on top of the roof, so I don't run past it if I am not ready to harvest them, but I can if I want to. Last tip, and this has to do with the actual good plot. It's the one for grass. You need that for animals. There are llamas, cluckers, and goats. Llamas are used for wool, which gives you backpack, which is where all this extra space comes from, as well as armor. Clucker's eggs are used for healing cells, which is the only way to heal other than naturally in the game. They're also an okay source of food. But goats provide milk. 1 bucket of milk will give you a lot of thirst and a little bit of bonus. Every time that your thirst bar runs completely out, you can drink 5 or 6 buckets of milk, and that gives you like half of your bonus. You'll never really need to eat food again if you have a bunch of goats on your raft. This sprinkler, it also has some instructions on the side. Again, my textures are really bad, so you can't see that, but it's a 3x3, and the sprinkler there in the back center will water all of these grass plots. Tends to be 2.5 grass plots per animal, so 3 animals and 9 is pretty good. That sprinkler can be fed water from this water purifier, which is the much better use of your titanium, by the way. You can have as many of these as you want. The more you have, the longer your batteries will last. Note about this collection net, this has to be placed first before you place down your water purifier. If you remove this, you'll break your purifier. It does require 1 foundation, and we're using that half support there for both of those. So those are all the tips and tricks I have. I'm going to do a full raft tour later on. My raft incorporates pretty much all of these designs except for this one. I'm going to start using this one more often. Probably by doing this, and then a biofuel refiner, and whatever else kind of space I need. The one tip I should give before I go is that you can use animal heads instead of potatoes here. This requires honey, but you can use all the shark heads that you've been gathering as a form of biofuel. With that, the sun's going down. Thank you for watching the video, and stay tuned for more.